Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay, Wendy? Okay, good. I'm obviously here in the back room at the co-op, and it's a little loud with all the refrigerators running. So I'll try to speak clearly and hope the background noise isn't too much. Without further ado, I'm going to switch off so you will see less of me and more of my screen. So hi, I've watched everybody popping in, and I'm really happy to say that I know most of you, which is really cool. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Erin. I'm the Kitsap Food Co-op Board President for the last year. And I'm very happy to be here and have another chance to present another annual meeting. So let's begin by reviewing our mission, because that's why we're all here. And this co-op exists primarily to connect our local community with quality food products and information that promotes a healthy future for our families and our planet. And we're working together to build a world where mutually beneficial relationships exist between producers and purchasers, between you and the people who make your food for you. So we come together once a year, virtually in this case, to ask the question, how are we doing? How well are we meeting that mission? And I'm going to kind of break it down into a few major categories, and I'm going to try to keep them as short and sweet as I can, because it's a beautiful day and I know no one really wants to be on their computer all that much. So we'll run through the co-op's finances for the past year. We'll talk a little bit about some operational details. We'll talk about membership, talk about governance, and we will give our new board candidates a chance to say hello and tell you a little bit about themselves. We'll do a quick checkup on our progress for the last year, and we'll talk a little bit about where we're headed in the next year. So let's look at our finances, and you'll see the little asterisk there because we have not finalized the books for our last fiscal year, which just ended a few weeks ago. And you may have noticed that tax season actually happened in the middle of July when it wasn't supposed to. So our bookkeeper's a little bit behind, but this is going to be very close to where things will land. In total, our co-op brought in just under $430,000, with $383,000 or so coming from sales of products in the store. So not bad for 800 square feet of grocery space. In addition to that, we brought in $33,000 in member equity. So that's both fully paid memberships and memberships that are in repayment as of this past fiscal year, which runs from July to June for us. Almost $10,000 in donations. And then we had a small award for $3,000. Our operating expenses are covered up by my Zoom window. Okay. Just about $400,000 this year. So as you can see, not a lot of space between our income and our expenses. Most of our income, most of what we bring in goes back to paying to the inventory, goes to pay for the products that we sell in the store. We also, of course, have operations expenses and occupancy expenses, things like rent and utilities and merchant processing fees and all the other supplies that go into running the store. And then our payroll, keeping our employees well paid for the work that they do. In addition, we were able to invest about $19,000 in major improvements in the store. And there's those beautiful new refrigerators we saw looping with Kevin Koski, holding one of them up. I had grand ambitions to try to put a picture of Kevin in every slide, but I quickly realized I did not have time for that. And so that brings us to our grand total at the end of the year, which is thankfully that we had $10,000 in positive income across all sources. So the co-op is still here. We made it through our first year and we still have some money in the bank. And that's super good news for a tiny startup food co-op. So let's look a little bit at our assets and liabilities. So what we can count in the bank. And in total, our assets are valued right now at just under $100,000. This number makes me super happy every time I see it, because when I joined the co-op, the assets were, let's just say, way smaller than that. So we have done so much work, and that's where it really shows up. We have been carrying at the end of our fiscal year, so that was June 30th, about $33,000 in cash, which is not a whole lot for running a business, but we were making it work. About $26,000 in inventory, just a little higher than we normally like it to be. We count about $30,000 in fixed assets, so that's equipment value mostly, that still has value. And then a nice category we call other, of miscellaneous odds and ends in the bookkeeping world. Something I wanted to mention that isn't showing up here is that we did get some financial assistance related to the COVID-19 crisis. And in July, we finally received what we ended up applying for, what they call an economic injury disaster loan, EIDL. And we kept that loan under $25,000 for reasons related to collateral requirements. And then with that, we also received a $6,000, what they call the EIDL advance, which is essentially a $6,000 grant that we get to keep. We don't have to pay back. So in general, the co-op did quite well. COVID was a good thing for pretty much anybody in the food selling business. But that said, because we don't have a large cash cushion right now, one of our biggest concerns was what would happen if one of our staff got sick. And we don't have enough cash reserve to be able to pay a 2-week quarantine period for anybody who's sick, and then also anybody who was working with that sick person. So that was kind of what tipped us to decide to take on a little bit of debt that we will hold in reserve just in case we end up getting hit with a need to cover a lot of sick leave. So another thing that's really nice is that this is actually the co-op's first interest-bearing debt. You know, we've come this far without having to borrow money that we had to pay for. So we took the decision very seriously, and we continue to. And our goal is not to touch this money, but to pay it back once we're kind of out of the woods and we don't, you know, we're able to make some cash and not have this sort of ominous potential for people to get really sick hanging over our heads. So let's talk a little bit about our operational sales. And what you're going to see is numbers that are slightly different from the numbers coming out of our bookkeeping system, because this is our raw point of sale data, and it immediately ties the cost of the goods that were sold to our income. So just know that there are some differences here, but they're not huge. And this is going to give you a little bit different picture of how the store is performing. So since there's probably a fair number of people on this call who don't know a lot about retail finance, and maybe they never wanted to, but most of you do own a grocery store. So I'm going to walk you through kind of how our sales performance is. So we start out with the number of gross sales, which is a little higher than our net sales in this case, about $390,000. And we remove from that the discounts that we give away. So if you're shopping at the store, you're probably using your 10% monthly member discount and your bulk discount. You might be doing case order special orders, and those get a discount. So that's the money that comes off of our sale price as a discount that we don't see. So in the end, we take home somewhat less money. That's our net sales. Every product that goes off the shelf came to us at a cost. So this is the cost of those products. And you can see it's the lion's share of the money that we bring in is the product itself. And from that, we have some money left over, and that money pays for everything else that the co-op needs to pay for. In the retail world, that leaves you with what's called your profit margin. And this is really a mark of profitability as you look at how much money is left over. And our margin at about 33% is low for the grocery industry. And ultimately, we hope that it will come up. It's low enough that it's a little hard for us to make ends meet. Part of the reason our margin is low is because we actually are pretty generous with our discounts for the size of our business. So you can see that the discounts are actually knocking almost 4% off our margin right now. So I feel like this is an important thing to take home, because we know that the co-op is expensive, and it's expensive enough that it's a barrier for a lot of people to shop. At the same time, the co-op does not make enough money off of each of our sales to cover all of our basic operating costs in many months. So just so that people understand that we're not expensive because we're trying to make a lot of extra money. In fact, we're not even quite making enough yet. So there's two big factors that affect our profitability right now. And the first one is those high product costs. Because we are very small, about as small as a grocery store gets, we pay proportionally more, as it's very much an industry of volume. And the more product you buy from your distributors, the cheaper they will sell it to you. So we are the bare minimum, and we pay the most. So for the exact same product you would see at Fred Meyer, we're paying a lot more for it, and that's why our prices are much higher. Just for fun, I actually did a calculation where I looked at what the average daily sales is for a Fred Meyer store, and it is about 35 times our annual revenue. So that puts into perspective how small we are compared to Fred Meyer. And when people go, "Why aren't you as cheap as Fred Meyer?" I'm like, well, we have a little ways to go. The other issue is that we have a lot of local product on our shelves, and we pay those local producers fairly. We want them to be able to keep producing, which means they need a realistic living price for their products. And so that's another factor that contributes to our higher prices and our lower margins. And the other thing is those discounts. As I mentioned, we are actually probably giving more discounts than we really should from a business perspective. But we know it's important for people to be able to get a little bit of a break. And so we're really trying to figure out how to walk that line. So, oops, sorry, got my animations wrong. I'm missing a really important piece of information. Hold on. Take home messages from our operations. So if we look at just our operating costs, we actually saw a net loss this year of about $17,000. So we came into the game with a bit of a cushion. We had some operating funds, and it's not unusual. It's fairly typical for many businesses not to break even in the first year, and especially for co-ops, even big co-ops. So we're not in a panic about this, but we do need to make sure that our operations get to where they're reliably breaking even in this coming year. And so that's a lot of our strategy right now, is figuring out how to do that. And in those months where we couldn't quite make ends meet, we did end up using member equity to subsidize the store. And that's not ideal. It's definitely not our goal. We want to be able to have the store pay for the store, and the membership money that comes in go to growing the store. That is our goal. So just know that for those of you who are investing in us, we are moving in that direction as quickly as we can. And the bottom line is that we are still doing pretty well for a business as tiny as we are. And we recognize that we need to get our sales up. So the total amount of money we bring in every month needs to come up, and we need to work on those margins to see if we can get some of our costs down a little bit and be able to just eke a little bit more money out of the things that we sell so that we can be sustainable in the long run. So let's look at our monthly sales. One thing you'll notice right away is that they were fairly static for the first 6 or so months that we were operating the store, and they were not very high. And then COVID happened, and people suddenly realized they needed to eat at home a whole lot more. And like I said, like many grocery stores, we saw a huge and very rapid increase in sales. And what's really nice to see is that while we totally had a peak in April, we've stayed well above where we were before. So that tells us we attracted and we retained a lot of new shoppers when COVID hit. And huge, huge shout out to our staff and volunteers who managed to turn on a dime and make this an online store literally in like 2 days. And also to the customers who sucked it up in March and April and used our very funky online ordering system to the tune of $50,000 in groceries. That was awesome. So this is looking a little bit about exactly what we sell and how the different categories of products we sell performed over the course of the year. One thing that's really cool is that the proportion of fresh produce that we sell, especially right now, because it's actually come up over the whole annual average, is about 3 times what the average grocery store sells in terms of proportion of sales. So people come to this store because they know that they can get really good, really fresh, really healthy local produce. It's a really important resource. But if you look at this, I've got these categories sorted in order of income. So we bring in the most total revenue from our general grocery and household because it makes up the lion's share of the store. There's the most products there. But right now, our produce actually is running almost neck and neck with grocery, which is ridiculous. It's fantastic that we sell that much produce. And then that's followed by bulk and dairy and meat, the fresh stuff. If you look at our profit margins, with green being the most profitable and white being the least profitable, you see that produce, we actually keep those margins pretty low. We want produce to move and we want it to, be accessible. But the fact that we sell a lot of produce in bulk and dairy is part of what's bringing our margin down. So as we keep working to make healthy accessible, it's one of those things that's a little bit of a business barrier for us that we have to work on. Local sales have been fantastic, and I would think have pretty much exceeded all of our expectations. Local and regional products are a highly significant portion of our income. 40% of the products that move through this store were produced in Washington or Oregon. 20% were from right here in Kitsap County. So if you look at that total, when we got our final numbers for the year, it was $78,000 of product that was either produced right here in Bremerton or in Kitsap County. And that is a huge cash infusion. It's amazing to see what we've been able to do. And again, I'll go back to the fact that we do pay those local producers fair prices, and their prices are a lot higher than any giant agricultural farm. And so in the interest of trying to make them still affordable to you, this is one of the things that brings our margin down, because we can only mark them up so much. And the last place we want to cut a corner is paying our local farms right now. So the take homes from operations is that I feel in our first year, we have really supported that mission to connect consumers and producers in a mutually beneficial relationship. I'd like to think our customers have gone away healthier and happier. And I know that there's a lot of farms that are recognizing that they can start to move more product, they can plant more, they can grow, because there's now this reliable outlet for their product to get to their people all the time. And as I said, we infused over $78,000 into the local food system. So that's money that if you had shopped almost anywhere else, any other grocery store, would have just left our economy. And now it's here. So in addition to feeding yourself better, you are directly impacting the state of agriculture in Kitsap County. And that's so important. And the second is that we recognize that our prices are high and that we are doing everything we can to make the store more affordable. It's a huge challenge, and it is part of why it took 10 years to start this co-op, because conventional wisdom for the last decade is that it's an impossible challenge. You can't run a store this small and make ends meet. It won't work because you can't sell your products cheap enough and you can't sell enough of them to overcome that cost barrier. But you know, I think that 1,100 people in our community have decided that it was worth trying, and so far I think we've done a great job. So thank you everybody for hanging in there. And this year for our board, it's going to be a matter of getting really creative for how we overcome this barrier. We need this store to grow. It's the only way we get out of this box of being so small we can't compete is to get bigger. So we're working on creative ways to do that. And a really important message is that we know that not everybody in our community can afford this store, but those of us who can, to the extent that even if it's just certain products you reliably buy here, please do. We need the support of people who can support the store right now. So let's talk a little bit about membership, because these are the backbone of our customers and these are the people who actually got this thing off the ground. So we saw really strong growth in membership in our first year. And the really cool thing about it is that for those of us who were here before the store started, so much effort went into building that primary membership before there was a store. And that pretty much stopped as soon as the store opened, and we were focused on operations. But as you can see, our membership grew steadily just on the benefits of the store itself. The store is now selling itself and people are investing because they want to be a part of it. So we added just over 190 members since we opened, and we saw 60 members just since March. So when we closed the doors for COVID, there was a moment where we all thought that that might be a real bad thing for the co-op and nobody would want to shop here. And instead what we saw was way more people come and start shopping here. In the times of COVID, I think it was really respected that we took an extra cautious approach. And the fact that people did that in light of our very funky system is just inspiring. So thank you for everybody who took the time. Interestingly, along with our membership growth, we've seen a really steady increase in our media engagement. So all of our channels have seen a lot of new people coming in. We broke 5,000 likes on Facebook. Even though our Instagram account is relatively new, we have 2,400 followers on Instagram and over 2,000 newsletter subscribers. So there's a lot of people out there that are paying attention to this little co-op and interested in what we're doing. So let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about governance. So our board of directors in this last fiscal year was really small. There was just 5 of us. And obviously you've got to hear plenty from me. Probably the big news about me is that my term just expired. So I'm actually on the ballot, and I'd like to be able to put another year in here at the co-op. David Albright is our media master. So pretty much all the cool media you see coming out of the co-op, this is David's work. And we are so lucky to have him. He took on the position of vice president this past year. And we hope he'll stay there and continue to serve the co-op in the next couple of years while he's still on the board. I don't know if Kevin Koski's back from the mountains yet. I know Maria's on here somewhere. But we are finally letting Kevin go out into the woods without having to think about the co-op the whole time. So Kevin's term just expired. He has valiantly carried the torch as our treasurer for the last couple years actually. And he's ready for a break. So this is one of the positions that we'll be looking to fill with somebody new. Claire Trenton, you probably saw Claire if you were around when we were getting the store started. And then you stopped seeing as much of Claire because she had a beautiful little baby about 6 months ago. No, longer than that. In November. So she is going to take a break from serving on the board and become a super volunteer instead. But that means we have another open position, somewhat unexpectedly, on the board. Manu, I think I saw Manu pop up in the window, so he's listening. Our local restaurateur and entrepreneurial genius, full of great ideas and a really inspiring force for how to creatively grow this co-op. And last year, when we had our meeting in November, we set a goal of getting up to 7 directors this year, which we've really, really struggled to grow this board over the last few years. And I think we're going to get there. We've got plenty of candidates coming on. So it's so exciting to have candidates, people who are voluntarily coming going, I want to do the hard job that you guys are doing. But since we have only 2 directors who are carrying over, we're going to see a lot of turnover in the board this year. So a lot of trust to the people that we are electing right now to step into what has been, trust me, a very hard job, and help us continue to keep this little thing going. So at this point, this is where Zoom gets a little bit complicated for us, but I'm sure we can do it. And I think all of our candidates are on this call and would like to each have a few moments to introduce themselves and say a few words about why they're here and why they want to stay around and serve the co-op as a director for the next few years. So I'm going to run through their names, and then I'm going to let Wendy go through and bring them up and let them speak for a few minutes. So we're going to have Mr. Jeff Allen, Teresa Amos, Alexa Volweiler, Charlotte Clifton, Danny Gray, and me, who will not say any more because you're going to listen to me talk about more than you ever wanted to hear. So without further ado, Wendy, take it away.
All right, so I'm going to go in the order that Aaron announced, which means, where's Jeff? Here's Jeff. I'm going to unmute you or ask to. All right, go for it, Jeff.
All right, well, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Allen. I was on the board of directors for the co-op. I joined as a member owner in 2011, joined the board in 2015, and worked with an amazing crew to get over that 500 member hump and work towards getting the store. I stepped off the board in 2015 for some personal reasons, and looking forward to come back. And I want to say a lot of props to the folks that I worked with in the previous board, but an enormous amount of gratitude for Aaron, Manu, to everybody, all the volunteers to get to where we're at now. We have a store and we're selling food, and to have a $17,000 net loss in the first year of operations, despite the fact everything we're doing, we're in the right direction. So a great deal of gratitude and kudos to the current leadership. A little bit about me. I've been in Kitsap County for 30 years. I'm an educator. I was a mathematics teacher for students at Central Kitsap High School for about 10 years. And then for the last 20 years, I've been working at Olympic Educational Service District, where I'm the Director of Youth Services. So I am the principal for the Kitsap and Clallam County Juvenile Detention Center schools, the administrator for our federal Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act youth programs in Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson County. I'm on a couple of boards, Kitsap County Youth Commission, Olympic Workforce Development Council, Youth Committee. So community this is where I grew up. Well, I didn't grow up here, but I lived most of my life here, and both of my children were born and raised here. This is my community, and that's what encouraged me to get onto the board in the first place, and it's why I want to come back and help out. A couple of things about where my interests lie in serving on the board. First of all is growth. We got to continue the trajectory that the current board and leadership and wonderful volunteers have led us to. Growth in our membership, growth in our sales, growth in our space, growth in our outreach. How do we continue to grow and find different ways to reach out to our community? A couple of other things I'm interested in helping the board out. Now that we have a store, the role of this board changes a little bit, because one of the other things that we have is, and all of you, I'm sure, been to the store and gotten to meet some of our amazing staff that work there. And so how we support them, growth in the skills and knowledge of our staff, but also how do we look at the role of the board from that point on. We have general managers, and the role of the board is a little bit different with a general manager. In the past, I served on another board that we moved into a policy governance model, which is kind of the common governance model for co-ops. And so I'd like to help support with some of my background and moving step by step towards that end, as well as just our outreach to the community. As Aaron mentioned earlier, our mission is to connect local community with quality food products and access to information that promotes a healthy future. We have one of the most diverse, Bremerton is one of the most diverse communities in Kitsap County. It is the most diverse community in Kitsap County. And there's a lot of people, as Aaron was mentioning, that our store is not necessarily accessible to. And so I applaud Aaron's efforts, and it was a focus of the board back in the day that how do we make this store the grocery store for every member of the community in Bremerton and Kitsap County. And that's a lot of work to do that, but we can do that. So I was going to try to be brief. I'm obviously not. You learned that about me too. But I'm looking forward to be able to serve on the board. And if I'm not, I am continuing to support the Community Food Co-op and volunteer in any way I can. I'll stop now. Thanks.
All right, next we have Teresa Amos. I'm going to unmute you. There we go.
All right, hello. You get 2 math teachers in a row. Yeah, so I'm a math teacher over at South Kitsap High School, except for I am relatively new to Bremerton. My husband and I just moved here in 2016 after working for the Army overseas in Germany. When we were looking at moving to this community and to Kitsap County, we researched the different towns, the different communities. We looked at their diversity, on all different kinds of levels. We looked at the downtown revitalization project, and we got very excited about moving to Bremerton. And we have not been disappointed. I'm disappointed. We live just a couple blocks down from the co-op. I was so excited to see it open because I take the Annapolis ferry to and from work, so I'm always able to just swing by. Very passionate and excited that you've alleviated that food desert that exists in downtown Bremerton. So having options for people beyond the 7-Eleven for if you're just going to pick something up. And so that accessibility piece and managing some of those barriers, that's a really excellent challenge to address. Some of the skills that I have to bring in, and just like Jeff, either on the board or as a volunteer, I definitely want to see the co-op be successful. I have, outside of education, worked as a grant writer for nonprofits. So I have secured funds for an indigent patient clinic. I know that those things, that won't directly transfer over, but some of those skills and those reporting could be used there. I've also worked as a technical writer, so any types of documentation or knowledge management or procedures or other different things, good at handling that organization piece. And then for the marketing and kind of pulling new people in, definitely something I've done in all different kinds of jobs, from getting people to donate so that you are getting a grant so that you can have a dental bus come and serve, excuse me, sorry, my throat just got. So serve a community, or, trying to sell the fact that exponential growth is something important that you want to learn to an Algebra 1 class before or after the pandemic hit. Yeah, they seemed a lot more interested afterwards. So thank you so much for the opportunity to go for the board, and then also just having that co-op has made a real difference for me living downtown, and I'm sure it makes a big difference for a lot of other people. Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa. All right, next I've got Alexa. Let me get you unmuted. There we go.
My name's Alexa. Like Teresa, I am also fairly new to Kitsap County. Although I am a Pacific Northwest native, grew up over in Sammamish, other side of the water, worked in Seattle, downtown Seattle, most of my career. And so, I got a little bit tired of the hustle and bustle of the city and decided to move to the more calm side of the water. And I am finding some really great things about the community over here, and I've also been very pleasantly surprised. The skills I bring are in the finance spectrum. I've been working with Aaron for the past, maybe a year, when she reached out to me probably last summer and said, you know, the co-op's starting to open. You know, we could use a little bit of strength and someone to review the finances. And so, you know, I've been sort of working on the sidelines with her to understand the process and provide some recommendations. I am a CPA by profession. Yeah, I've worked in public accounting at a big 5 CPA firm, and I now work in commercial real estate at a fast-growing company. So I've dealt with a lot of challenges in my career, and I love challenge. So the co-op is probably right in line with what I enjoy doing. You know, I really appreciate having good quality, locally sourced food. I got pretty accustomed to having PCC over, you know, in Redmond where I lived. And, you know, I'm also a big advocacy for, you know, sustainability, and I'm a big cyclist as well, commute by bike and ferry. So I'm looking forward to a way to serve the community, get to know more people in the community, as well as, you know, maintain my interest for sustainable agriculture. What else? That's all I got. I'm hoping to be able to expand my role on the board. Oh, and one other thing, I have had board experience. I've been on the board of a very large cycling organization on the Seattle side for the past 5.5 years. So I've got good experience with board service as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got Charlotte Clifton. I will unmute you, Charlotte. Should give you a little pop-up asking to unmute. All right, go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte, and I have a lot of experience with small business. I worked and ran a small business that had everything. It was up in the San Juan Islands area on Guaymas Island, and it had a restaurant, grocery store, gas station, music venue, gift shop, and bar. So we had all aspects of a small business that you can imagine. And so I had to do everything. I had to hire, I had to do L&I claims, I had to do the ordering, I had to do all the financials. You name it, I've had some experience with it. So I'm happy to be an assistant or another voice for just helping move a business along. There are lots of small things we can do to help increase sales, and I would like to make the store as diverse and affordable for people as possible in that way, because I love the diversity of this community, and I can see that we need to, you know, as a community, serve all aspects. So I work full-time at a law firm that does Social Security disability, and that's it's not a what am I gonna say? It's just it's important because I'm helping people, and that's how I see the board fitting in to my life, is just helping people. So, I grew up in the Northwest, so I'm happy to be here, and I'd love to be another assistant on the board. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we've got Danny Gray. Let me get her unmuted here.
Hi.
Hi, okay.
So I have been an administrative professional for over a decade, but at heart I am an artist and creative, which means that I am really good at pulling together resources and finding solutions to problems that might not have been the first or easiest when it's not sure, you're not sure how to solve it. I'm really good at pulling together and doing research. And I moved to Bremerton in October, but we were coming to help build my partner's father's home and get it all together. And every weekend we would drive by the co-op and be like, is it open yet? Is it open yet? So the first time that it was open, we came in and got a membership right away. So I that the co-op is in a perfect spot to leverage that and be part of the community and build the community and pull people together. And I have all kinds of ideas for member engagement and community engagement and fundraising. So yeah, I just think that together we can all make a big change and grow and be sustainable in the future. So.
Thank you, Danny.
Sure.
All right. I'm going to unmute you, Erin. So I'm not sure what's next on the agenda. Is it question and answers, or did you have more presentation?
Yeah, I've got a little bit more presentation,
Okay.
a few more slides, and then we'll break for questions and answers. So let me jump back over to my screen share here. 1 second. Okay, we are back. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all the candidates coming in and saying a few words. Amazing. I've worked to a greater or lesser extent with every one of these people. And whether they end up on the board or not, there is a role for every single one of you. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to have this kind of talent and this kind of enthusiasm coming in at a time when we really need it. So for those of you, oops, hold on, my computer's having an issue here. Here we go. Whoa, stand by. Stand by. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so if you haven't already voted and you were waiting to hear from our candidates, please remember to do that. And if you didn't get a ballot and you think you should have, please reach out to Wendy, our membership coordinator extraordinaire. She's the one who answers members at kitsapfood.coop, and she'll make sure to resend your ballot. So yeah, super important part of owning a store is making sure you've got leadership in place that you can trust to do what you want them to do. So at our last members meeting, which was back in November, we set some goals for ourselves, and I wanted to just run through how we did on those goals. And the overarching plan we had for this year was that we would expand services before we expanded our retail space. And here were the primary things we wanted to accomplish. So one was adding more product lines. The store was pretty sparse when we first opened, in part because we needed the feedback for what direction to take it. And we have, I would guess, increased by at least a third our product offerings, if not probably almost 50%. So, and we did that across all categories, really trying to focus on the healthy stuff, proteins, produce, dairy, and once we got the freezers, a ton of ice cream, because everybody needs ice cream. Oh, sorry, my animations are out of order. We launched, well, we added some retail hours, which we weren't sure we'd be able to do in the first year, and it wasn't a lot, but we did manage to open 5 extra hours every week. And we were able to institute our special orders program. So that both gave our member owners a way to stock up at a discount, like getting 10% off if they ordered a case. It also has allowed us to open our distributor catalogs to our members. So if just because you can't get it in the store, doesn't mean you can't get it. And our staff are amazingly flexible at working with people to source what they need. So if you didn't know that it's there. And take advantage of it while we're small and we're real flexible, because we will bend over backwards to get you your stuff. We started offering monthly sales and promotions, so that just at least once a month helps to bring the price down on a few select items. So, maybe if you were waiting for something, you'll get that chance. And of course, the big one was we actually bought our first grown-up refrigeration. We got some brand new refrigerators and freezers. We've been incredibly lucky that we haven't had to invest too many thousands of dollars in repairs on our old refrigeration that we started with. It was one of the biggest risks we took, was opening a store with all used refrigeration. But it is old and it is not super reliable. So the fact that the community stepped up, and I'm not kidding you, we raised the money for those refrigerators when we put the ask out in 5 days. So our members are amazing about recognizing the co-op's needs and making sure we get them. So we had $8,000 in donations right away. We got a little grant from Arc'teryx, And then we ended up contributing some of our member equity that we had in savings to actually go big and get 3 freezers and 2 refrigerators, and they are wonderful. In addition, we had a couple of other goals, and one was to be able to add in-store events to start doing more community outreach and education. And Charlotte bravely stepped up, organized an event, and then this pandemic happened and canceled that event, and needless to say, no events have happened since then. But really exciting, because that was one of the things that completely fell off the radar, with our board being only 5 people and the board being very engaged in operational setup. So that needs to come back online. That's one of the key ways that we are going to grow the store, is having those creative social outlets. So really looking forward to that, whichever one of you takes it on. And we also wanted to work on offering some expanded in-store recycling opportunities, which we had started networking with TerraCycle to do this. And ultimately, it was a bigger job than we were ready for, and we're going to need a dedicated volunteer. And I think we have one as of earlier today. So that's something that we didn't fulfill this year, but hopefully in the coming year we will. And so then the question is, where are we going? With all this new talent, #1 priority is our increased sales and improve our margins, because that's going to be the difference in whether we're here for the long haul. And here's the strategy that we are working towards right now. One is we need to add some retail space. More space means more products. The more products we buy, the lower the prices we get. So we've always had, this has been stage 1 opening, and we've always had a stage 2 plan. So our goal in our second year is to get that plan done. Really key elements to that plan are adding high demand, high profit margin categories to our current product mix. One of those is beer and wine sales. And we're a little bit of a just administrative snafu. We didn't have our permit when we opened, but it is in process very slowly, COVID style right now. And we should have the ability to sell beer and wine probably within the next few months. And we'll focus on local beer, local wine, and natural wines, which are very hard to find in this county. The other one is in-house prepared food. And we get asked about this more than anything else. So like, how come I can't just come in and get a fresh, healthy sandwich or a smoothie or some coffee? And boy, do we want to be able to do that for you. So we do actually have a plan for how we can build in sort of a mini kitchen that would let us do this. And this plan was in place, actually developed before we even opened. We built out the floor as you see it, knowing that we wanted to do this next. And we submitted a humongous grant proposal for it last year that did not get funded. And we have now submitted another one. And if that one pays off, that's really what sets the clock. So we will know by the end of this year if we're going to get some funds that would cover the major capital costs of finishing building the store and expanding. So that would be fantastic. If we don't get that grant, then we will be looking for some more grant writers. And we will also be potentially going back to the members for another fundraiser to start to raise the money, because this is really important. If we can't bring in things like these prepared foods, which sell at way, way higher margins than general grocery items do, it's going to be hard for us to ever bring that margin up, at least in the short run. So fingers crossed, everybody, that that comes through. The other thing we're going to continue to work on, because it's worked really well so far, is increasing the amount of sales that go through alternate retail channels. You know, you can only pack so much through one little register in one little store, but as we learned, online order and pickup has actually been a really lucrative way of moving food for us. Our sales increased dramatically, and even after we opened the doors and we finally got our nice, shiny, much better online ordering system in place, it's still bringing 20 to 30% of our monthly income is coming through that channel. And as we all know, you know, ironically, the world is a lot more open right now, but COVID is spreading faster than it ever was when we were closed. So we are poised and ready to, if we have to close the store again, we can and we will, and feel pretty good that we can still keep up and we can still grow if that happens. It's really, really important to us to keep our staff healthy. Our staff is tiny. If one person gets sick, if we lose all of them, you can imagine what a world of hurt the store is going to be in. So we appreciate people who are making that decision to still use order and pickup, because you know, the fewer people that our staff have to touch every day, the safer they are. The other thing we're looking into is grocery delivery. Needless to say, that is the wave of the future. We've all gotten used to sitting home and having stuff just show up. So we're looking at some different options, and those range from interacting with Instacart to some really cool creative solutions in the background within the larger local food system to potentially leverage some resources that Kitsap Harvest is putting in right now. So just know that this is something that's on our radar. You may see a member survey asking how excited you are about it, because there's certainly going to be some costs associated with it. But every way we can move food, the further our mission goes and the better the store does. And of course, it's really, really important for us to make the store more affordable. I think that's probably our number one biggest barrier to the number of people walking through the door right now. And so one of the things we've been talking about trying to do is create a household staples program. So the idea would be if we can get those higher margin categories into the store, that can help offset letting us control margins on just a selection of products that we know people are likely to need every day. Basically, we take a loss on selling them because we can make a little extra somewhere else. Right now, we just can't afford to do it. But hopefully within the next year, we'll be able to come up with a way to have some low-cost staples so that more people can come and reliably get them from us. We've also had a couple of member owners come to us with a really cool idea to set up an in-store credit program where basically we create a fund that low-income residents can voluntarily opt into and just say, I need some help paying for some groceries. And we've had 2 different member owners already offer to put in matching funds to encourage the community to make donations and start that pool. And then it'll be looking at the finances basically for how much we think we can raise and how much we can reliably give out. So that's on the table, something that we hope would help get the community that can't currently shop the store now to shop us at least some of the time. The other thing that we've been talking about doing is reducing our margin on products from local farms and small producers. We really would like to make local more affordable. We know right now local is kind of a luxury item and it shouldn't be that way. But the last thing we want to do is say we will pay less to our producers for it. So we need to come up with a way where we can take less off of the top of that sale to keep our customers' costs down. So first of all, it's finding that balance between how much more can they produce and how much more can we move to help with that cost point. But the more we support them now, the more our farms will grow. So this is just another solution that's on the table to make local more affordable for you. So in the end, to those of you member owners who are on here, always the single best thing you can do to help the store right now is to shop the store as much as you can. And we totally understand that not everybody can shop the store all the time, but even if you just decide that we are your go-to for just a few select items, that helps. Tell your neighbors, shop, shop, shop. We are here doing more than selling groceries, and we need as many people in the community in on it as we can. A couple small things that have been suggested by member owners in the past and that are absolutely valuable to know. If you're in the store paying at the register and you've got cash in your pocket, you spend a lot of money on merchant processing fees. All small businesses do. It was over $8,000 that came off the top of our sales just to pay for the credit card transactions last year. We sure would like to keep that money. So if it's practical for you to do so, consider paying cash. The other thing you can do, if you can afford to do it, is to leave some of your discounts at the store. So not that we're pushing you to do this. We want to make the store affordable, but for those of you who don't need to take your 10% member monthly discount, that's just a little bit more money that goes back into our margin. So something you can do as a member owner to help your store grow. And just remember, when you're trying to make that decision for where to go, that anytime you're spending money at the co-op, you're doing so much more than just feeding yourself and feeding your family. This is a movement. It is putting your food money to work to support agriculture, diversity, the ecosystem, the local economy. We are an engine for change as much as we are a place to get food. So keep that in mind, when you're trying to make that decision of where to go. And we really, really appreciate your support and look forward to seeing every one of you at the store as much as possible. So with that, I will open the floor for questions. And I should have any questions either for me or for any of our candidates who are on the call, because I'm sure they'd be happy to answer questions as well.
So we have 2 questions that have come in through the chat. The first one is from member Steve, and I'll go ahead and answer it because it's regarding membership. He wanted to know what our current member owner count is. We have 1,137 members. Of those, 895 have paid in full, and the remaining 242 are making monthly installment payments. So that's a great number. We actually had a new member join today. I thought maybe they were joining because they really quickly wanted to get in on the meeting, but I didn't see them show up. I sent them the announcement right after they joined. So yeah, if you know people who haven't joined, it's a one-time thing. $20 or $10 a month payments. It's affordable if people want to join. And then the other question is from Peggy Roy. She wants to know, Erin, what is a reasonable gross profit margin for a food co-op?
So most of the more mature co-ops are coming in sort of in the 36 to 38% Some of them get up to 40. That's really, really high. So it's just a few percent, but as you probably heard people say, like grocery is an economy of volume. So those few percent, you have to be moving a lot of product for those few percent to make the difference. But for co-ops, keep in mind, we are actually all nonprofits. So the co-op needs to make enough money to support the store and to make sure that they've got a little bit of cushion, but not more than that. So that's how co-ops are designed. If the store is actually making a surplus at the end of the year, that surplus goes back to the member. So there's no incentive for a co-op to overprice their food because the people who shop the store just get that money back at the end. Essentially, that's what a dividend is. It's a co-op saying, oops, sorry, we accidentally charged you too much. So here, have some money back based on what you put in. So that's true with every co-op. And part of the reason that co-ops are more expensive is because they are doing such a social movement in terms of paying their staff. Like they tend to pay far more than a conventional grocery store will. And because they're so often sourcing locally. So it's an important thing to keep in mind that as long as a co-op's fulfilling their mission, they're unlikely to ever be the cheapest place you're going to find your food.
Does anybody else have any questions for any of the candidates or for Erin or? Maria looks like she has a question. Maybe not. Let me unmute her for a minute, see, because she looks.
Kevin, go ahead and say something. Hello, Kevin? Are you there? All right, well, Kevin's on the phone. I think I lost him. You there? Oh, Kevin's gonna be here in 3 minutes, but that's all I really got. But I don't know, are we gonna be done in 3 minutes? Probably, huh?
Yeah, probably, unless
All
anybody
right.
has any questions.
Nope, no questions. Oops, there he is. I put him, he's off speaker.
Okay.
Say hello.
Hello. My name's Kevin. I'm the treasurer of the co-op. I'm getting out of the mountains. The co-op is amazing and it's enriched my life, and I've really had a great time building community with the Kitsap Community Food Co-op. And I've been listening in, and I'm really excited to hear about all the new board members, and you guys are all awesome.
Woohoo.
Yay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, I'll mute myself.
I'm done.
Okay, Jeff, did you have a?
Yeah, two things. For those of you that don't know Kevin, I want to do a special call out for Kevin. Kevin and I joined the board together back in 2012, and Kevin has stuck with the board since that time. Those of you that have met Kevin will never forget that you have met Kevin. And I just want to give a great, big, huge thank you as he's going off of the board to how much he's given of himself to this mission, to this idea, to this value. So thank you, Kevin, if you can hear me. And Erin, I wanted to just clarify something regarding the election. So the board is targeting to fill have a board of 7 seats filled, or is it that's the target? Because I believe the bylaws are something different, or like 10 or something like that. So I just want to.
Correct. So our goal for this year was to hit 7. And part of our hesitation was to not have the entire board turnover. So what we can do, as you probably know, is there is room for interim directors in between. So, you know, whoever doesn't come on, we can talk about it and kind of see how this board gels together, and then gradually grow it again if we need to. So the bylaws do allow for that. And it was more just an effort to not have our current potentially overwhelmed.
What we're doing now and just replace everybody at once. Absolutely.
So
yes.
But
I'm really, and I say that just because I'm really excited to see the people that are stepping up to be on the board. Some pretty amazing people. So pretty excited.
Okay.
And then I think Alexa had a question. I will unmute her, and if she. Alexa?
Yeah, I don't think I had a question.
Oh, I saw you raised your hand, but maybe that was an accident.
Oh, I was applauding, thanking Kevin for his service.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Kevin deserves the applaud, that's for sure. I actually can credit him and Maria to me joining. They talked to me at Farm Funk 3 years ago, And then I was out for a run one day and I'm running down Perry Avenue and I hear, "Hey, Wendy!" And I look and there's Kevin hanging out the window of his car telling me to come to a board meeting. So.
Okay. Well, good job, everybody, in keeping this to an hour. That was awesome. I'm sure everybody wants to go home and have dinner. I want like a big virtual round of applause for Summer, who's here with us since before we opened, our earliest employee, still here, masked, as she is. But we're here at the store, going to sign off and let Summer close the door for the day. So thanks again for showing up, everyone. And we'll make sure that this presentation is available. So if your friends missed it, let them know that they'll be able to get a copy. And always standing by for questions at info@kitsapfood.coop.
And don't forget to tell your friends to vote.
Thanks for being amazing.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.